a month or get up to $2,000 retail bonus cash. See your Utah Hyundai dealer. Offers end 6/3/24. Call 480-500-7931 for details.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
My name is J.R. Bird. As mayor of Roosevelt, I increased transparency, led the charge to pass term limits, and kept taxes low. As your congressman, I will leverage my experience in the energy sector to champion energy independence and dominance. I'm determined to defend the unborn, secure our borders, uphold our Second Amendment rights, and bring the same level of transparency that we've upheld locally. I hope to earn your support.
Paid for by Bird for Congress.
Looking for a secure retirement plan without market risk? Look no further. Lyle Boss, president of Boss Financial, specializes in no market risk retirement strategies with guarantees of principal, guaranteed growth, and lifelong income. Join Lyle right here each Saturday and Sunday for his Safe Money radio show and call him now at 855-355-SAFE for your complimentary customized Safe Money information kit and Safe Money book. Nothing but upside here at 855-355-SAFE.
Hi, this is Doug Wright, and Dee and I had a brand new experience. I've seen some world premieres of movies before, but never an on-stage production. And at Hale Center Theater, my friend Michael D. Fox has a brand new wonderful play called The Time Machine. He has woven just a wonderful, fanciful, fantastic program around the H.G. Wells classic, The Time Machine. What I really enjoyed here is that he respects the integrity of the original story, but adds a framework that expands and even enriches the experience on the stage. It's The Time Machine, and it's showing right now through July 20th. And by the way, this is not a musical, but as you enjoy the score of The Time Machine, I want you to remember it comes from the talented mind of Cameron, who's 15 years old and a great member of the Hale Center troupe and family. It's time to get your tickets right now to The Time Machine. And all you have to do is go to hct.org.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
Some unusual slowdowns. Not sure what's causing it. Northbound I-15 starting just before the I-80-201 junction. By the time you're reaching the downtown exit at 6 South, you're in good shape. We've had an accident at 9th South, 3500 West, and cleanup continues on the crash eastbound I-80 at the 1300 East exit ramp. UDOT construction alert. Plan ahead as Bangerter Highway in South Jordan will be closed in both directions this weekend as crews relocate utilities for the construction of the 9800 South interchange. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Breezy winds, a slight chance of rain today. Things cloud up and cool off for the weekend. Highs drop into the 60s by Monday. Right now, 79 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, it's easy to watch the headlines of what's been happening on protests on college campuses and looking at everything from the United States policy relating to Israel, to Hamas, anti-Semitism, Palestinians in Gaza. But as always, beyond the headlines, we need to remember that instant certainty is the enemy of truth, and it undermines trust. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We're going to dig further beyond the headlines today and think again about what we think we know, because we do live in this instantly certain kind of world, and it always gets us in trouble. And we want to explore this in a unique way today. And we're really thrilled to have joining us on the program today Rabbi Carrie Vogel, the Director for Undergraduate Initiatives for the American Jewish University. Great piece in The Hill, thehill.com, entitled Campus Protests and the Tyranny of Certainty. And Rabbi Vogel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I loved your piece in so many different ways, on so many different levels, mostly because you were so authentically courageous, vulnerably courageous in saying, hey, I don't know all of this either. Walk us through kind of your journey on this one, and we'll get into why certainty is such a big part of our problem.
Absolutely. So I have worked as a Jewish professional full-time for 15 years and for many years before that informally. And I felt like I had a pretty representative understanding of what was happening in the Middle East. I'm somebody who seeks out knowledge and learning and really tries to understand a full perspective. But the reality is there is so much information. I mean, the true quantity of information on this situation is absolutely enormous. And this year, as I began to prepare a curriculum on this topic for high school students, I felt like I really needed to go back and learn more. I felt that even though I had done this professionally for 15 years, there was still so much more for me to learn, and more importantly, more perspectives for me to understand. And so even though I felt like I was coming at it from a pretty educated, and when I mean educated, I mean I had really understood a lot of different viewpoints and perspectives, I still felt like I needed to do more work.
I so love that. And we often talk about the idea of radical curiosity and then the ultimate in humility and being able to ask those questions and say, wow, there is more for me to learn. One of the things in your piece at The Hill that I just loved was you talked about those blessed people who are at the ends of the political spectrum who are just certain about everything. That's a dangerous space, but it does sound kind of comfortable from time to time.
It really does. I mean, we are wired biologically as humans to avoid vulnerability, right? No one wants to be the only gazelle on the savannah. And because no one wants to be the only gazelle on the savannah, we're also wired towards feeling safety in numbers. And so vulnerability requires us not only to push back against these things, but to actively seek them out. And that's a big ask, right? That's really asking us to push back against our natural inclination.
Yeah, that courageous vulnerability, I think, is such a crucial skill, I think, for the 21st century. And you take that even further to look at this whole area of nuance and how we can actually hold some of these principles that seem to be competing in the same place. I often reference it when you look at something like immigration to say, you know what, rule of law and compassion, those are actually compatible principles. And you did a brilliant job of applying this to what is going on in the Middle East. Walk us through a little bit of that.
Nuance is a skill that we actually teach to children at a very, very early age, right? In early childhood, where one kid says, I was playing with that first, and another says, but you walked away and put it down. A great early childhood educator helps those children understand that both of those narratives are actually true and helps them have compassion for how the other person is seeing the situation. Unfortunately, in our educational system, starting around late elementary school, the vast majority of assessments start to focus on recall versus synthesis or reflection or any of the other really rich things at the higher end of Bloom's taxonomy. And what we do is we start to train students that they just need to recall. Just the one thing that they read, that's the right answer. It's the whole picture. And of course, there are many wonderful educators out there who are giving students authentic assessments, but the vast majority of our educational system is not designed to support learning deeply and having space for nuanced dialogue and reflection. And nuanced dialogue and reflection requires so much work. And it also requires a really high level of emotional intelligence, which is also not something we have a lot of space for in our traditional educational system.
I love that. The fact that we do spend so much time on just recall as opposed to reflection and nuance, that emotional intelligence is such a crucial thing. And yet we live in this world that is all about the hot take and the instant certainty, whether it's on a news site or whether it's in your social media feed or on cable news. There's always that instant certainty. And so how do we start walking that back a little bit in terms of helping, especially our young people, develop the ability to live in that nuance and within that reflection?
I think we have a lot of work to do when it comes to framing what education is, in particular for younger millennials and Gen Z, because they really have been taught that their job is to memorize this one thing for a test. And there's all sorts of research that shows that they're not that great at, again, synthesis and reflection and doing that tougher piece. And so we really need to reframe what it means to be educated about a conversation. In Judaism, there's a significant emphasis placed on the idea of being a lifelong learner. In fact, we read the entire Torah, the Old Testament, every single year. And we do this because we know that every time we come back to those stories, the phrase, we're standing at a different place in the river. We have new experiences and knowledge. And so there's always more to learn. There's this feeling that you truly are always learning. Education is how we expand our own experience. It's how we expand our own understanding of the world around us. It's how we elevate ourselves in our words. And anyone who really wants to engage in real dialogue and debate, which unfortunately I don't think is what's really happening on these college campuses, because anyone who wants to be taken seriously has to put in the work and do it from an educated place. And by the way, education and learning typically breeds confidence, which is a great antidote to feeling vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely. And it's that ability to have that cosmic perspective of humility and being able to ask the question. I wonder why she thinks that's a good way to do that, or I wonder where he's coming from that's causing him to believe that or to make that particular case. So as we move it all forward, I want you to share, just as we close out, you used a great analogy, great story from an 18th century rabbi that I think is so important for us, not just as we look at conflicts like in the Middle East, but in so many other places, and again, something that our young people definitely need to learn.
Yes, I love this story, and I actually have in my office a tiny little brass little thing that looks like a piece of paper and one that looks like a little hourglass with ashes in it to remind me of this quote, because I think it really does remind us that we are all learners, right? There's a framework, the educational triangle, the content, the learner, and the teacher, and we are all constantly circling around in this. And we can learn so much from other people if we just open ourselves up to it, if we just set aside that ego and acknowledge that we are all constantly on a path of learning. And, we're shutting ourselves off from the quantity of learning we can access when we refuse to engage with each other in a nuanced and compassionate way.
I love that. And walk us through the two slips of paper from the rabbi as we close out this segment.
Absolutely. There's a story of an 18th century rabbi who reportedly carried two slips of paper. And in one pocket, the piece of paper said, "The whole world was created for me." And in the other pocket, the paper said, "I am but dust and ashes." And the balance of these two things is just such a beautiful image, right? That we are all unique and special and have our own truths and narratives. And also, we are all but dust and ashes.
So good. Such a powerful thing. This is a brilliant piece. You need to go and check this out today at thehill.com. And Rabbi Vogel, we appreciate you making time for us today. We look forward to having you back. This is exactly the kinds of conversations we need to have in our country, in our communities, and right around our own kitchen tables as we look at how we move forward together in a different way. And again, as we get rid of the instant certainty, we'll actually find the truth. We'll trust each other more, and that'll always lead us to a better space. Rabbi Vogel, thanks so much for joining us today.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Boyd.
All right. Again, that's Rabbi Carrie Vogel, Director for Undergraduate Initiatives for the American Jewish University. And I just loved her piece. I read it several times, and I've been looking forward to this conversation with her. And this is why we do the show. And if you go through her piece, you'll see how she navigated her own learning and what she thought she knew. And it's that think again moment of thinking again about what we think we know, whether it's about conflict in the Middle East, whether it's about what's going on in our own politics or the struggles we have in our own homes. We always have to get to that think again moment, which requires some humility, some courageous vulnerability, and an ability to think differently together. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The familiar comforts that brighten a child's day
Her name is Opie. She's a cat.
can mean even more for those with serious health challenges.
I have a lot of friends. My little sister. My stuffies.
Primary Children's Hospital specializes in activities and therapies, so even the sickest of kids can still be kids.
They've got like dogs there. They help kids distract them from like when they get needles or whatever.
Your support makes it possible. Become a smile maker today at kslkids.com.
Does your student have a hard time getting up in the morning? Or struggle to fit certain classes into a packed schedule? Consider a few online classes at Mountain Heights Academy, a tuition-free online public charter school. Any Utah student in grades 9 through 12 can replace a few traditional classes with high-quality online courses and get the best of both worlds. Their teachers have years of experience in digital education, and all courses meet Utah graduation requirements. Learn more at mountainheightsacademy.org.
Good morning. I'm the 40% off window company.
40% off? Of what?
Hey, 40% off!
Yeah, I'll bet it's your biggest sale of the year. This week only, because you need a model home in our neighborhood.
Well,
nothing. It's baloney. Hi, this is Kathy.
I'm Doug of Window World. When you hear those things, you know you've entered the baloney zone.
Resist the force of the baloney zone.
Find Window World online at windowworldutah.com.
Or call Window World at 281-8111. That's 281-8111.
And that's no baloney.
Put your phone on D&D, that means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D, that means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business calm at ooma.com/radio.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you're always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
If you've got a honey-do list with electrical, plumbing, heating, or air conditioning projects on it, Any Hour Services can help. Call Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, there's lithium in the water of the Great Salt Lake. Companies say they can extract it without damage. Second, the Israeli military has recovered the bodies of 3 hostages held by Hamas, but there are still more than 100 being held. And third, Park Service rangers have recovered the body of a man who was apparently trying to float the Grand Canyon on a wooden raft. 79 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and one of the areas that we've been looking at over the last couple of weeks is the area of pornography, the impact it has on young men, young women, our families, our communities. And we want to look in an interesting way today in terms of how we have these conversations, where the gaps are in terms of what we think we know, and areas where we ought to think again about what we think we know. Gail Dines has been researching and writing about the porn industry and sexual violence for more than 3 decades now. She is founder and president of Culture Reframed, which has created a free online toolkit, the program for parents of tweens, program for parents of teens, to help parents raise porn-resilient kids. And Dr. Dines, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
So give us some of the things where I think a lot of parents kind of buy into well, not my kid, or that may be a problem somewhere else. And sometimes I think we're a little naive in terms of what is actually going on. So what is actually going on that all parents and grandparents, for that matter, need to be aware of?
And all caregivers, yes. I would say the question is not if your kid comes across pornography, it's when. And studies show that the kids first get to pornography between the ages of 11 and 13. But we've got anecdotal data that suggests even younger. I just had an interview before where they were talking about 6 years old, they'd gotten to pornography. So I want to say that the question is, what has happened in our culture? And what's happened is that pornography has become the wallpaper of young people's lives. And if you're sort of parents or grandparents, you're not familiar with the world that your kids live in. And really, pornography is, sadly, the major form of sex education today for most kids who have access to the internet. So we really want parents to know how to deal with this so the kids can be porn resilient, porn resistant, rather than letting the porn industry grab hold of them and give them a sort of...
Alex's perception was that he was fighting off somebody.
Oops, sorry about that, Doctor. We had a little sound cross going there. I want to unpack just a little bit because I think it was so important what you said in terms of it just porn being the wallpaper for our kids' worlds as they're online, and that it's also become the form of sex education for many of our kids. And you make the case that if parents, caregivers, grandparents don't take control of that narrative, then we're really ceding that ground to the pornography industry. Kind of walk us through that.
Well, that's perfectly put how you said it. Yes, what we say at Culture Reframed is if you don't talk to your kid about porn, the porn industry will. Who would you rather get there first?
Yeah.
So that's why we created our online programs at Culture Reframed for parents, because, it's a very difficult subject, and it's very difficult to how to talk to your kid. Believe me, when you have a discussion with your kid would rather be anywhere else in the world than talking to you about pornography. So we have brought together experts to produce this program that's online, free. You can go to it through culturereframed.org, and it really helps parents develop skills for how to have conversations. For example, we say, don't have 101 minutes. Don't have 100-minute conversation. Have 100 one-minute conversations. We say when you're talking to boys especially, don't do it eye to eye. That never works well. More so for girls, but for boys, do it when you're driving, you're cycling, and talk about the fact of what images and what's disturbing, and the fact that your kid feels safe coming to you to tell you that they've stumbled on pornography. And to make it clear, you don't have to go to a porn site to get pornography. It's all over the social media sites, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, Discord. It's on the gaming sites are full of pornography where the kids hang out. So it's really important to help your kid think of you as the safe person who will not shame or blame your kid. If you want to shame and blame anyone, you shame and blame the porn industry, who has absolutely targeted our children.
Yeah, that's so important. And that when to is often as important as the how to, but that when to in terms of timing. I love the idea of doing it. Sometimes we think we have to have the talk as if it were an event, but you really have to have those 100 one-minute conversations, as you said, to really foster that trust that it's not going to be a blame or shame kind of situation, but that it's just going to be a conversation that it's quick, it's natural, it's normal, and that you're the safe space for them to go.
That's right, and it has to be very much age appropriate. You don't want to be talking about pornography, excuse me, with a 6-year-old or 5-year-old, but you can be talking about what's private in the body, what's yours, what nobody should be seeing, and that you shouldn't be seeing somebody else's private parts. And if you ever do see them, then you should come and tell me, because we need to talk about it. And to say to your kid, if you see anything on the internet or anywhere that you find you're disturbed or it doesn't feel good inside you, or you don't know what it is and you're confused, then you should come and get me immediately, because we don't want kids getting sucked into the world of pornography. And you can start that very early on, and then you sort of graduate up as they get older, and around 11 and 12 or even earlier, you can start talking about what pornography is. And we have all of this in our programs on how to do it. But the most important thing is we want the children to be the owners of their own sexuality and their own lives. And what the pornographers have done is come in and hijacked our children for the sake of profit. That's all they're interested in. They're not interested in the well-being of our children. And they've done it through very sophisticated algorithms. And so we really need to be prepared. And also schools should be doing this. We also have a sex education curriculum online that's also free, that deals with how to teach kids in the classroom about pornography. Of course, it has no pornography in it, and it's very carefully worded because, you know, a lot of us are educators, so we're very aware of age-appropriate education.
And the downstream and the ripple effect of this on our young people as it rolls out through their lives, everything in terms of young women and how they feel or how they're treated, their confidence level, the young men, the same. There's so many things that we have to get to, and I love the way you frame this entire conversation. And it is, I think, more than anything, helping the parents get comfortable with the uncomfortable so that we can actually lean into these conversations in a far, far better way.
And that's a big job because parents themselves are not comfortable.
Right.
They do have to get themselves comfortable with this because you're there for your kid's sake. Because really, as I say, you don't want the pornographers having the first conversation with your kid about pornography.
Yeah, absolutely. Gail Dines, this is fantastic research, extraordinary effort. This is the hard work and heavy lifting that does make a difference in our communities, in our culture, and in society. You can go to culturereframe.org, and fantastic resources there. Gail, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
That's a crucial conversation we have to get to. We've got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable conversation as it relates to pornography and our young people. So, again, check it out at culturereframe.org. Some great resources there to have those conversations, because if you don't, somebody else will. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. More homes are now being listed for sale in Utah, but interest rates and prices are still high. Deanna Devi is with the Utah Association of Realtors.
I think there's definitely this realization in the market that the higher rates are here to stay. If you got a rate in the 3%, we now realize that's probably not going to happen again.
New listings are up 23% in April. Also, the inventory of homes grew 7%, and sales that closed were up 9%. The median home price is now $500,000. Debbie says more homes are being built, interest rates are coming down, but not as quickly as economists predicted. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Israeli military says overnight its troops recovered the bodies of 3 hostages taken during the Hamas terror attack last fall. They were Shani Luke, a German-Israeli, 22 years old, Amit Baskila, a 28-year-old woman, and Itzhak Gelarenter, a 56-year-old man. They've apparently been dead for some time. Hamas is still believed to be holding more than 100 hostages. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day now 114 points, while the NASDAQ is down 13. And our KSL weather, it'll cool off and cloud up a bit for the weekend. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:30.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
You know, Deb, you and I have had this conversation so many times. We think, oh, I wish I had a little more light here or maybe a ceiling fan there.
That's why we love Master Electrical. So anytime we have an electrical problem, we know we can call them and they will give us their upfront pricing guarantee.
Because we're not going to do it yourself. We're going to leave it to the professionals. And this upfront pricing guarantee is fantastic. I'm sure you've been bitten by bids in the past where they say, oh, that's going to take half a day. And then 2 weeks later, the bid and the invoice have nothing to do with each other.
Not only will you get their upfront pricing guarantee, but you will never see an upcharge. Their pricing system simply won't allow it.
Master Electrical proudly serves from Logan to Santaquin.
They do everything that has to do with electrical, and they're always open, including for emergency services. The phone number to call is 801-543-2222.
801-543-2222, or check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
Small business owners, we know tackling your to-do list can sometimes feel like going 12 rounds against a heavyweight champ. Except that heavyweight's gloves are made of something hard, like diamonds. So when a new to-do pops up, you're like, I can't. I'm boxing my diamond boxing glove-wearing heavyweight champ of a to-do list. At Progressive, we don't want to make your day any harder. That's why we make it easy with over 30 customizable coverage options, so you can finally land a knockout blow. See if you can save on business insurance in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
Family Talk with Straight Talk.
You give and you give. It's time to get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data, and you get to choose who joins your family plan starting as low as $25 a line. Does it have to be family? It can be family or people you like.
Get more lines and more savings. Switch to Straight Talk for family plans starting as low as $25 a line per month for 4 lines. Find us at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com. Family plan discount with 4 lines, all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Taxes and fees apply.
It's time to take your adventure to a new level in an RV from a Motorsportsland RV Center. Hurry in now for our Memorial Day pre-sale and save thousands on your next travel trailer, fifth wheel, motorhome, or toy hauler. Don't spend this Memorial Day weekend sitting at home when you can enjoy the marvels of nature right here in Utah. With a full season of camping just ahead, right now is the perfect time to get into the RV of your dreams. We've even got clearance models at over 50% off MSRP. At Motorsportsland RV Centers, we offer real prices without hidden fees for freight, prep, orientation, or even propane. If you sit down with another dealer to make a deal and they start adding all sorts of crazy fees, it's time to stand up, walk away, and come to a Motorsportsland RV Center for a hassle-free, low-pressure buying experience. Come and see us in Salt Lake, Mill Creek, Spanish Fork, or at motorsportsland.com.
Let Motorsportsland help you get away.
Motorsportsland.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
It's the final cleanup of an accident eastbound I-80 at the 1300 East exit ramp. We still have a few crews left to the right shoulder. Also a crash Redwood Road about 106 South. The UACPA supports certified public accountants in Utah through ongoing professional education and leadership development. Find a CPA that works for you. UACPA.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Breezy winds, slight chance of rain today, the high around 82, and then it cools off for the weekend with more clouds. Highs drop into the 60s by Monday. And right now, 75 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, just about an hour ago, we had a fantastic conversation with journalist from The Hill, Alexander Bolton. He follows the ins and outs of the Senate on a day-to-day basis. And in particular, he's always zeroed in on those budget battles. And sadly, we have another one brewing that will lead us into September, into the fall elections, and another potential showdown. All of those are going to have big impact, including the future leadership of the Senate on both the Republican and the Democratic side of the aisle. So there's possibly a lot of drama coming our way, and it will all interconnect with these budget battles and spending decisions. So I spoke with Alexander. He was still in our nation's capital, and if you've been to the Capitol, you know that is anything but a quiet place. So excuse the background noise as we dig a little deeper on this budget battle looming in the Senate, in particular, in Congress, of course. Take a listen. We're really thrilled to have back on the program today Alexander Bolton, senior staff writer at The Hill, has a great piece in The Hill, thehill.com, talking about where we're headed towards spending. I know it feels like we're just getting past a round of spending, but if Congress actually does their job properly, there's some appropriations bills that need to be done between now and September the 30th, and we always remind everyone September the 30th always comes. But there's some real debates heating up. And Alexander, welcome back to the show. And you've been looking at some things as it relates to where the Democrats and where the Republicans are most likely to hit heads coming up in the spending packages.
Well, I think what's interesting here is that Democrats and Republicans, at least in the Senate, were largely on the same page as far as spending levels and the appropriations bills. They passed them with large bipartisan majorities. I guess it was last year. Now they're running into basically a conflict because Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, he is adamant that the defense spending number needs to be increased. But Democrats are saying, look, whatever percentage you're going to increase defense spending by, you also have to increase non-defense programs by this similar percentage. And that's a problem when the country's, more than $30 trillion in debt. McConnell has said very clearly that he is not going to support so-called dollar-for-dollar parity increases between defense and non-defense programs. And the other interesting wrinkle here is that House Republicans are only calling for a 1% increase to defense spending, and that is not adequate as far as McConnell views it. McConnell's a key figure here because he is the leading Republican calling for a return to almost Reagan-era prioritization of defense spending. He says the nation faces greater threats of any time since World War II, and he cites competition from Russia, China, Iran, and he says that essentially this is a matter of huge national importance to get these defense spending numbers up.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting thing to look at. So obviously with Mitch McConnell calling, this will really be his last big push through the spending process and those appropriations bills before he steps down as the leader of the Republicans in the Senate. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see how that plays. As you mentioned, there's been a lot of bipartisanship in terms of kind of that appropriations process. Now you have some of those on the Democratic side saying, hey, we do need to have this dollar-for-dollar thing, that it's not just about defense. We got to also look at some of those things right here at home.
Yeah, and I think, one of the key differences here is that we're now in an election year, and I think Democrats are hedging their bets in case Donald Trump is the president next year. And so I think that's why they're trying to drive a very hard bargain now on social spending. I think they're trying to set themselves up so that if Donald Trump is in fact reelected, that they're not going to allow any spending bills to go through unless basically non-defense social programs get the same increases that defense programs get. So I think that's why they're taking a harder line here, because they're anticipating potentially a Republican administration. But what's interesting to me is that, a year ago, the Democrats were okay with letting, defense get a bigger increase than the non-defense programs. Joe Biden agreed to a deal to raise defense spending by 3.3% for fiscal year 2024 and freeze non-defense spending. Now, at the time Biden cut that deal, Republicans were threatening to not raise the debt limit. So that was the leverage they had to get that good deal, to get more funding for defense. The debt limit has been raised through the election. So without that leverage, Republicans are now running into these demands from Democrats. Look, you want to increase defense spending, you got to do the same for social programs and also other non-defense programs like infrastructure, homeland security, investment in semiconductors, for example.
Yeah, and I think all of those things, again, especially in the election year, is going to get very interesting as we get up against that debt ceiling once again. That becomes another interesting leverage point moving into the fall. As you're watching this, Alexander, what are some of the other things, some of the nuance pieces that you're keeping your eye on in terms of how this might tilt or how some of these alliances might work? And then maybe a little bit broader look at the difference between what will happen in the Senate and then the battle that we'll have in the House.
To me, what's interesting is that, last year and, for much of this year, you've had Senate Democrats and Senate Republicans very much aligned in what was a battle with the House over, defense and non-defense spending numbers. It was really the Senate was able to increase their leverage because Senate Democrats and Senate Republicans were able to work together and kind of stare down House Republicans. And so they won. They pretty much got what they wanted, at the end of last year, or heading into the beginning of this year, and also on the $95 billion in emergency foreign aid for Ukraine and other priorities. Now, what's interesting to me is that you have this election year split where, Senator Mitch McConnell and also Senator Susan Collins, the senior Republican on the Appropriations Committee, they're kind of headed into a partisan fight with the Democrats. And so I think the result is that you're just going to see a stalemate on these spending issues until after the election. And that's usually what happens in an election year. Now, the other thing that's interesting to me is on the House side, you have a new Appropriations Committee chairman, Tom Cole of Oklahoma. He is a very pragmatic kind of, old school Republican lawmaker. And what's interesting to me is that he is kind of sticking with just a 1% increase for defense spending, and also he is proposing a 6% cut to non-defense spending. So even a guy like Tom Cole, who's a pretty practical lawmaker, he is essentially siding with conservatives and pushing some very steep cuts to non-defense programs, and that's certain to pick a fight with the Democrats. Again, sets the stage for a potential government shutdown even. I know everyone wants to avoid that, but when your starting position is we're going to cut your cherished programs by 6%, that's really them's fighting words. And so, we're going to see another shutdown on the table this year. Kind of hard to imagine, but, if you're looking towards October surprises, or if you're looking for October surprises, that could be one of them.
Yeah, and that could be very interesting rolling in to that first Tuesday in November, because they will have to do something. Of course, the date there is September the 30th. That day will come, and that would be a potential showdown, and likely they'll kick that past the election, I'm guessing. But as you said, they're so far apart on the numbers, it'll be interesting to see. Also, just really quickly, wanted to get your take on how this might play out on the Republican side. I know that John Cornyn, one of those potential successors to Mitch McConnell, has been pretty vocal in terms of his opinion on this. John Barrasso will take an interesting thing. Do you see this will actually have an impact in terms of who becomes the next leader for the Republicans in the Senate?
That's a very good point. And I think the question going forward is, will both Thune and Cornyn, the top two contenders to replace McConnell, are they going to endorse the spending levels that were essentially signed into law by President Biden and then Speaker Kevin McCarthy back in May of 2023? Or will they try to pander to some conservatives by, excuse me for saying pander, but look, it's a leadership race. It's all about pandering. Yeah. Will they try to pander to some of their colleagues by, pushing for basically to abandon that deal and cut, the non-defense programs? This will certainly be grist for that leadership race. And, right now, Cornyn and Thune are pretty much, Republicans of the same mold. Yeah. Will Cornyn try to get aggressive by pushing Thune on steeper spending cuts? I think that'll be an interesting kind of inside the Capitol drama to pay attention to.
Yeah, no question. And we just call balls and strikes on this show. So pander, I think, was the appropriate word of the day. So great stuff as always. Alexander Bolton, the senior staff writer for The Hill. You can check out his piece at thehill.com. This is going to play out in a big way as we roll into the fall. And as always, Alexander, thanks for giving us some fantastic perspective.
Well, thanks for inviting me on.
And that's Alexander Bolton from The Hill, and these are things that are going to be bubbling up as we go through the summer. And then just to reframe it, I know it just feels like we got through a showdown and got the government funded for the end of the fiscal year, which, again, is September 30th. And then I think what we will see is the typical model, which we'll get into September. We'll have all the showdown fight. Both the Democrats and the Republicans will use it to raise a lot of campaign cash. And then as we get to September the 30th, magically they'll all come together and say, what we ought to do is we ought to get through the election, because no one wants a shutdown in the last few months before a critical election. So both sides are going to say, we will do a continuing resolution. So they'll keep all the spending rolling. They'll kick the can. My guess is going to be it will be until about the 13th or 14th of December. They'll get past the election because they all want to be home. Remember, once we get past Labor Day, both Democrats and Republicans are not going to want to be in our nation's capital, potentially facing a shutdown showdown. They want to be in their districts and in their states running for office and trying to win an election and raise campaign cash. So we'll have a very typical, very predictable fall, I believe. And then when we get past the election on the first Tuesday of November, we'll get past Thanksgiving, and then we'll have about a 2-week window where we'll do this all over again to try to figure out how to fund the government. All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. We'll come back. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Remember when vacationing was affordable? Well, General RV helps you vacation more for less, especially now with rollback prices on every motorhome, fifth wheel, travel trailer, and more. It's our rollback pricing event, May 15th through the 18th. This is your chance to get the best deal ever. Plus immediate delivery on select models. And we're also giving you up to $1,500 in fuel free. See dealer for details. Pay less, vacation more. Only at General RV. In Draper off I-15.
Common Spirit Health has expert orthopedic care that gets you back at it and back to your best. Find skilled orthopedic physicians at Common Spirit locations who specialize in general orthopedics and repair of hips, knees, shoulders, and hands, so you can return to running races or chasing the grandkids. Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Orthopedic care with human kindness is here. Visit mountain.commonspirit.org.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from the station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
Listen up, guys. Hot Tub Factory Outlet is having our biggest parking lot sale ever. And we have more inventory than you can imagine. You won't want to miss this one. Save 20, 30, 40% off on our Sundance hot tubs and swim spas. We have hot tubs starting as low as $49.95. Hot tubs starting as low as $49.95. Are you ready to save big? For limited time only, save thousands of dollars on any of our luxurious hot tubs, saunas, and cold plunges. Don't let this opportunity slip away. Our unbeatable prices won't last long. Buy local and you'll experience the magic of having an in-house service technician at your beck and call. Make sure you visit the Hot Tub Factory Outlet parking lot sale first before you consider buying anywhere else. Your ultimate relaxation oasis awaits. This incredible offer is only available while supplies last. Join us at Hot Tub Factory Outlet, conveniently located next to Cowabunga Bay. Hot Tub Factory Outlet, open Friday and Saturday till 7, Sunday till 4. See you soon.
Utah, you love the spring, so don't spend it painting. Do what Mike did. He called Rhino Shield.
Our home is basically a contemporary with stucco finish, and we just started noticing that the paint was just fading and the stucco would just look like garbage. We had received a postcard from Rhino Shield, and we decided to take a look at it.
Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
The process with Rhino Shield and their crew, they were just very conscientious. We had problems in the past with painters. They leave debris and everything. Well, we didn't have that with Rhino Shield.
Now you can get the guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
The thing about Rhino Shield, the heat gain has been reduced, and we save $70 a month. You don't hear that about any type of paint.
Remember, Utah, this is a limited time offer, so call now, 435-246-4466 or rhinoshieldwest.com. That's rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield.
Advertising used to be simple. Your options were radio, TV, newspaper, and let's not forget the yellow pages. Now it seems like a tidal wave of options. Podcast, cable TV, streaming, OTT, CTV, audio networks, smart speakers. On top of that, you need digital marketing for your website along with SEM, SEO, display, video, YouTube, email, and all the social media platforms.
Look, you're the expert in your business. Wouldn't it be nice to have an expert to market you? We are Bonneville Salt Lake, the local marketing and media company you know and trust. We reach customers across all digital and social platforms and have the reach of traditional advertising available as well. We find your customer anytime, any place, anywhere on any device here in Utah or anywhere in the world. We work to optimize your results with our in-house local team of experts, providing you with qualified leads, not just impressions. Contact Stephanie Palmer at KSL for a free consultation, including a complete digital audit with no obligation or cost to you. Email spalmer@ksl.com. That's spalmer@ksl.com.
Hey, it's me, your liver. You know, the organ that helps you recover every weekend after pizza, donuts, and all those drinks. When you have a headache, you take an aspirin. You have a stomach ache, you pop an antacid. But where's the love for your best buddy, the liver? The least that you could do to help me stay healthy is take Active Liver from New Nordic. Active Liver tablets contain high-quality, all-natural ingredients like milk thistle, globe artichoke, and turmeric extracts, which are proven to keep me healthy and you feeling your best. Active Liver provides an easy daily detox and helps protect me all year long. So let me make you an offer you can't refuse. You take care of me with Active Liver, and I keep taking care of you. Capiche?
See for yourself why Active Liver is Scandinavia's #1 liver health supplement. You can find Active Liver at CVS and online at Amazon, Target.com, or directly from NewNordicUSA.com. Again, find it in stores at CVS or online at Amazon, Target.com, or NewNordicUSA.com.
Any Hour Services can help unclog any drain in your house, whether you have a backup, a clog, or a slow drain you want fixed. Call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
The Good Feet store, the life you love, starts here.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, homes are still expensive, interest rates still high, but realtors say more homes are being listed for sale in Utah. The Israeli military says it's recovered the bodies of 3 hostages who were held by Hamas. And a former congresswoman says her faith has helped her every step of the way in her cancer treatment. 75 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
When you think of Utah's homeless, who do you see? They are people with names and faces, and many are in dire circumstances. They are men and women, and sometimes children. Many are living on the street, in a car, or in a shelter. Some choose to be homeless. Most do not. Many experience the challenges of addiction or mental illness. All are vulnerable. Homelessness is a crisis, one that affects us all. Utah is building a coalition of community leaders and concerned citizens united to end the plight of homelessness. Homelessness should not mean hopelessness. Learn more at projecthumandignity.org. A message from Utah Impact Partnership.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd in the summer of 2020, the call to abolish the police, that movement gained traction, particularly in the political space. However, in the years that have followed, we've learned a lot more about policing in our communities. And in the latest research, it doesn't show that Americans want fewer police. It seems what everyone does want is better, more ordered, and safer police practices. Billy Binion's the associate editor at Reason.com. He writes about criminal justice and government accountability, crucial conversations, all of them. And Billy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Great piece talking about in the black community in particular, that they want to maintain or increase police presence, and they also want it done better. This is one of those where I think we try to create these monolithic groups and divisions amongst the country. Tell us what you found out, especially as it relates to policing and criminal justice.
Yeah, so essentially what this latest research shows is that there is a really, really wide chasm between Black people and white people's fear towards the police. Black people, I don't think it's any surprise, are disproportionately much more afraid of police interactions, and I mean, some of that stems from just disproportionately, being victims of police brutality. I think some of that also stems from some of the media coverage around some of these really outrageous events. But despite that fear being very, very disproportionately experienced between these groups, Black people also overwhelmingly want to not only maintain but also sometimes increase police funding and presence in their communities. So out of the specific numbers, people who are very afraid or afraid of police, I think it's 78% want to increase presence, and Black people who are very afraid or afraid of police, 81% want to maintain or increase spending. And I just think that would surprise a lot of people who maybe see, some of the media coverage and the more fringe voices that are getting a lot of the media attention and the microphone in the community. It seems sometimes that I think those activists are speaking for the entire community, but there is no spokesperson for the Black community, just as there's no spokesperson for white people or men or women or gay people or what have you. And I think that it's just another example that people are a lot more complicated and nuanced. And the idea that a lot of things can be true at the same time, which I think gets lost in some of the more simplified media coverage that does well on places like social media, but doesn't really tell the whole story.
Yeah, so important. And getting to that nuance. So we always say instant certainty is the enemy of truth. Undermines trust in all of these. And this is a great piece. I encourage you to check this out at Reason.com. Billy Binion, associate editor at Reason. Billy, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to have to jump to some breaking news. And Claire joins us in studio. Claire?
Boyd, the man convicted of hitting and killing a local toy maker, was just found guilty on all charges. A judge has decided that 72-year-old Asael Lyman is guilty on all 5 counts, including negligently operating a vehicle while resulting in death. In December of 2022, Lyman hit Niall Thacker with his truck while Thacker was stopped at a light on 90th South Bangor Highway. Police determined that Lyman was under the influence of alcohol and had a 6-year-old child in the car with him at the time of the crash. We'll continue to bring you the latest live on KSL News Radio, reporting Claire Scott.
Claire Scott joining us in the studio. Thanks, Claire. And as always, we'll keep you up to the minute in terms of any breaking news here on KSL News Radio. That report just coming out. Always thankful to Claire Scott for giving us the insight there. And as we round out hour number 1 of the program, I think it's we've really been hitting on this theme of the instant certainty and the fact that we have to get to the nuance conversation. So we were just talking with Billy Binion from Reason.com and going through some of the things looking at police and the fact that most Americans really want to look at this not as a black-white issue, not as a minority issue, but let's make sure we're doing it right, we're doing it effectively. And so the fact that we often jump to these things, and I love that Billy pointed out for us that a lot of times it's the more fringe voices that try to represent an entire community that often get us into trouble because it appears that everybody is lock, stock, and barrel. We had the same conversation as it relates to what's going on college campuses. Whether those are people who are more on the side of the Palestinians and Gaza or the Israelis inside of Israel. It's so easy to let the loud, angry voices drive the narrative and create a false perception in terms of what is actually going on. And so that's why we always have to get to the nuance on all of this. Now, we're going to step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, yes, there was a very raucous House committee meeting yesterday in our nation's capital that got pretty low on the totem pole when it comes to dignity. We're going to talk about the solution to that coming up next. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news. A man convicted of hitting and killing a local toy maker has just been found guilty on all charges. A judge has decided that 72-year-old Asael Lyman is guilty of 5 counts, including negligently operating a vehicle resulting in death. In December 2022, Lyman hit Niall Thacker with his truck While Thacker was stopped at a light on 90th South and Bangerter Highway, police determined that Lyman was under the influence of alcohol and had a 6-year-old child in the car with him at the time of the crash. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A series of violent attacks on LA's public transit system continued Thursday with a shooting death on a Metro bus. ABC's Blake Trolley has more.
Investigators say the attacker shot a man from behind when the bus came to a stop in an industrial area. The security guard says the shooting has him worried.
65% of the people who works in this area rides on the metro train.
The shooting came just hours after officials in LA discussed a surge of law enforcement on the metro system to deal with a recent spike in crime. Blake Trolley, ABC News Los Angeles.
And coming up, it looks like the weekend's going to have a few more clouds and some wind. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Common Spirit Health has expert orthopedic care that gets you back at it and back to your best. Find skilled orthopedic physicians at Common Spirit locations who specialize in general orthopedics and repair of hips, knees, shoulders, and hands, so you can return to running races or chasing the grandkids. Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Orthopedic care with human kindness is here. Visit mountain.commonspirit.org.
Looking for a secure retirement plan without market risk? Look no further. Lyle Boss, president of Boss Financial, specializes in no market risk retirement strategies with guarantees of principal, guaranteed growth, and lifelong income. Join Lyle right here each Saturday and Sunday for his Safe Money radio show and call him now at 855-355-SAFE for your complimentary customized Safe Money information kit and Safe Money book. Nothing but upside here at 855-355-SAFE.
Cindy Olsen here. My friends at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo are having a big spring sale, so you can get her the sewing machine that she dreams of. Whether it's for mom, sister, daughter, or the new graduate, the perfect gift for her is at Dave's Bernina. Come in now. The more you spend, the more you will save, such as $200, $500, and even $1,000 discounts when spending $2,000 to over $10,000 on Bernina sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines. Burnett machines start at $199 and take $900 off the Bernina $435, only $1,499. Featuring for a limited time, 2.99% finance offer for 60 months on certain machines, 25% off all luggage and big sewing books. Hurry in for amazing bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties. Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
Progressive asks, what do an escaped leopard,
We're live from the zoo where a leopard has escaped.
a growling stomach, an uneaten tuna sandwich, and a backdoor doggy door have in common? They can lead to an unexpected kitchen renovation.
Yeah, hi. Is this the zoo? Your leopard is in my kitchen.
Bundle your home and auto with Progressive for great savings and round-the-clock protection.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
I gotta change the oil in my car.
Right now, get 5 quarts of Pennzoil Platinum Full Synthetic with an STP Extended Life Oil Filter for only $34.99.
Get in zone.
And what do I do with my old oil?
We can recycle your used oil for free.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
And I might need some help.
No problem. We have helpful how-tos at AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
And it is emergency traffic due to a multiple vehicle crash with injuries in Draper, northbound on I-15 near 114th South. Right now, we have UHP blocking 3 left and center lanes of traffic, and medics and a fire crew blocking a right lane of traffic. So those who are trying to go northbound on I-15 are zigzagging out of those left and center lanes to the right, and then right back into the center lanes to get around this. Right now, we have stop-and-go delays back to Bangerter Highway. UDOT construction alert, plan ahead, as Bangerter Highway in South Jordan will be closed in both directions this weekend as crews relocate utilities for the construction of the 9800 South Interchange. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Look for breezy winds and a slight chance of rain today, and then clouds build up over the weekend. Highs drop into the 60s by Monday. Right now, 79 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
In a nearly perfect example of a new high in lows coming out of the United States Congress, in an oversight committee hearing held last night, verbal fight broke out. I'm less concerned about the verbal sparring that went on between Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and Representative Jasmine Crockett. What I am concerned about is what's underneath that headline and how we actually get to a better place when it comes to how we communicate with each other. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Of course, the big headline coming out of an evening oversight committee meeting held late last night was, of course, there actually was an issue at stake. It was the debate on Attorney General Merrick Garland. House Republicans wanted to hold him in contempt for not giving the recording of President Biden's interview with Special Counsel leader Robert Hur, who conducted the classified documents investigation and interviewed the president. And members of the House want the tape, not just the transcript. However, things devolved into some personal attacks and insults, moving back and forth, and a little sparring going on there inside the committee hearing. And while I rarely like to validate bad behavior, I want you just to get a sense of this new high in lows when it comes to Congress. So I'm going to play for you an exchange between Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and Representative Jasmine Crockett. Chaos broke out as they went back and forth. You'll hear an initial back and forth between the two representatives, and then Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez interjects, along with a few other chattering noises in the back. Here's the exchange.
Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about
I
don't
think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order.
Mr. Chairman, that's beneath even you regain order of your committee.
Order.
I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Green's words. That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?
Are your feelings hurt?
Her words down.
Ms. Green agrees to strike her words.
I believe she needs to apologize. No.
Perry, okay, hold on. Then after Mr. Perry's going to be recognized, then Ms. Green.
I'm not
has
apologizing.
Well,
then
okay,
you're
reserve
not
the right to
striking your
object.
words.
I am
You're
not
apologizing.
Now let's go. Come on, guys.
There you have it. I would say that this has all the qualities of a fifth grade food fight, but I think that would be very disrespectful to fifth grade food fights that are at a much higher plane than what we saw in a committee hearing of the United States Congress. Just to round it out, Representative Crockett then responded later on in the hearing to Representative Greene's insult, sparking another round of chaotic voices clamoring for control, and, of course, a bewildered chairman who just didn't even understand what was being said.
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike those words.
I don't think that's
Hold
a
on.
part of
I'm
it.
trying to find clarification on what quality.
Chairman, motion to strike those
I have no idea
words.
what you just said.
We're not gonna do this. Look, you guys earlier literally just.
You just voted to do it.
Y'all did it first, so you don't
just
talk
voted to do it.
Order.
I'm trying to get clarification.
Look at, calm down.
I have a single word for all of it. Enough. Enough. This is so beyond the pale and so beneath what we should expect and what we should demand of those we elect to the United States Congress. There is no planet, and I don't think there's anyone listening, that this would be tolerated in your own home. And so why is it that we continue to tolerate it at the highest levels of government? We can't, and we shouldn't. And I think until real leaders step forward and say enough, we're going to continue to get more of this. And so what should be done? I think both the representatives should be censured by the United States House of Representatives. If they need to be suspended from their committees or from their committee assignment until they can act like a member of Congress, should. The decorum that is expected in the rules. If you can't do that, you can't do the job. So don't do the job. If you want the job, do the job. And, of course, this applies to a lot of things, even like things like passing a budget and funding the government. That is the job. If you don't want to do the job, get another job. If all you want to do is do insults and spark social media content, do a lot of fundraising, make appearances on cable news networks, get a different job. Because that is not the job that's described when you signed up and said, I am going to run for this particular office. And so we have to change the dynamic. We have to change that conversation. And I think there's a lot of ways we can get to that and get at that. But it does start with some accountability. There has to be the absolute predictability of consequences. But if a committee chairperson and if the leaders of both sides of the political aisle are unwilling to tell, not the other side, to tell their own members, that's out of line. That's not acceptable. We'll take you off that committee. We'll sit you on the sideline. You don't want to play by the rules? Fine. There is absolute predictability of consequences. And the body has the ability to do that. The House can do that. But you have to have leaders that are willing to do that. As opposed to say, well, it just got a little heated. And I will be the first to say that these two representatives are not the only ones who have engaged in this kind of verbal conversation inside a committee hearing or on the floor of the House of Representatives. The thing that we can't do is continue to allow it without consequence. And I think there's a lot of different ways that we can get at that. There's a lot of different ways we can get to that. But it all begins with the people at the top saying, we're not going to accept that. And so that's the call. I do not expect in any way, shape, or form to see Marjorie Taylor Greene change the way she behaves. She's proven that over a number of years now in terms of how she's going to conduct herself. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, similarly. And you can do the yeah, but and the back and forth and how about this, but they did that. That doesn't take us anywhere. The only thing that will take us anywhere is when we get past the shoulder shrugging, not my fault. She started it. He did it first. Again, very offensive to young children and fifth grade food fights. We should not be watching that or having to listen to that in what's supposed to be a representative body. It's supposed to be the people's house. That wouldn't fly at my house. I know it wouldn't fly at your house. We should not accept it in the people's house. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Get the news.
Salt Lake City is looking to shake up the zoning of single-family homes
and a deeper understanding of the news.
2 homes on what was 1 lot.
Feels like an afterthought, and I think it's going to feel crowded.
Tim and Amanda catch you up first thing in the morning. Then join Dave and Debbie and Boyd Matheson for conversation about the news middays. And Jeff Kaplan has the latest developments on your drive home. For news and talk, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Do you know how to tell if a clogged drain is something to worry about or not? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I understand it's annoying and inconvenient, but sometimes a clogged drain can be a sign there's a more serious issue with your sewer main line. If the drains in the lowest level of your home aren't draining, or you flush a toilet and it comes up somewhere else like a shower or a floor drain, I'm urging you to look at this as more than just an annoyance. The last thing I want you to experience is a sewer backup. If you're a homeowner experiencing any of these issues, the first step would be to snake the line to see if it's just a blockage, which one of our drain techs can do for only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. We have a crash. Looks like it has involved multiple vehicles northbound on I-15 at 114th South. Right now, we have 2 to 3 left lanes blocked, and they are working to get all of those vehicles out of traffic over to the right shoulder. But the delays are already strong and in place on northbound I-15. They, with the accident at 114th South, we have stop and go and slow and go delays now reaching about 146 South. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Spring is a great time to elevate the look of your home and landscape by adding beautiful flowers to the yard and patio. And pros and hobbyists alike know that the best flowers are grown by Olson's Greenhouse, right here in the mountain valleys of Utah. This is Brian with Olson's Greenhouse, and my family has been growing flowers with love and care for over 80 years. That's 4 generations of a local, family-run Utah business. So whether you're looking to add a pop of color to the back patio or a beautiful flower bed to the front landscape, flowers from Olson's Greenhouse are the perfect finishing touch to make your yard a joy to relax in. Stop by ogg.com or find us on Instagram at Olson's Greenhouse Gardens, where you'll find inspiring photos to get you going on your flower gardening journey. You can also find a local retailer carrying plants from Olson's Greenhouse. That's ogg.com for Olson's Greenhouse Gardens, where you can dream big, dream bold, and dream in color with beautiful plants and flowers from Olson's Greenhouse.
Hello, this is Congresswoman Celeste Malloy. I'm running for re-election to defend Utah's conservative values in Washington, D.C. Like you, I'm tired of government that spends too much, listens too little, and makes all of our lives harder. In Washington, I'm pushing for better ideas to keep the federal government involvement in our lives to a minimum. Let's keep the government in its proper lane. Keep me in Washington so I can keep fighting for you, because we are just getting started.
Paid for by Celeste for Congress.
Ah, the life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
It's time to take your adventure to a new level in an RV from a Motorsportsland RV Center. Hurry in now for our Memorial Day pre-sale and save thousands on your next travel trailer, fifth wheel, motorhome, or toy hauler. Don't spend this Memorial Day weekend sitting at home when you can enjoy the marvels of nature right here in Utah. With a full season of camping just ahead, right now is the perfect time to get into the RV of your dreams. We've even got clearance models at over 50% off MSRP. At Motorsportsland RV Centers, we offer real prices without hidden fees for freight, prep, orientation, or even propane. If you sit down with another dealer to make a deal and they start adding all sorts of crazy fees, it's time to stand up, walk away, and come to a Motorsportsland RV Center for a hassle-free, low-pressure buying experience. Come and see us in Salt Lake, Mill Creek, Spanish Fork, or at motorsportsland.com.
Let Motorsportsland help you get away.
Motorsportsland.com.
Put the equity in your home to work with a home equity line of credit and get 6.49% APR for the first 6 months. Learn more at cypresscu.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the man accused of killing a local toy maker while he was driving drunk has been convicted on 5 criminal counts. Second, a man who was shot by Taylorsville police while he was in a mental health crisis was allowed to plead guilty to a lesser charge. And third, police in L.A. say they can't put an officer on every bus to deal with an outbreak of violence. 79 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. It is Friday. We always do a little inside look at presidential politics here on Inside Sources. And, of course, there's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter, a lot of clamor in the political chaos leading up to the first Tuesday of November. And so we always want to make sure we slow it down just a little bit, give you some clarity, give you a chance to tune out some of the noise, give you some updates in terms of what you should be keeping your eye on as we march our way towards November and beyond. And I will just remind you as we begin this section that while the first Tuesday of November will be very important for our nation, the most important day of this year is not the first Tuesday of November. It's the first Wednesday of November. Because on the first Wednesday of November, regardless of who wins and who loses, not just in the presidential race, but in the Senate, in the House, in the governor's race, all the local races, the first Wednesday of November will come. Everyone's going to get up. Sun will rise. You'll go to work. You'll take care of your family. You'll help a neighbor in need. You'll coach Little League. You'll make a difference in your community. And the great American experiment will roll on. That's the most important day. Politics is important. Being informed and engaged matters. And we have to remember that it is community and culture that lead. The politicians will follow. And we have to keep expecting that. If you listen to the last segment of the program, we went through the debacle that was the committee hearing in the House of Representatives last night. I will not go back to that. We're just going to say enough. Enough. It's the people's house, and that won't fly in my house. I know it won't fly in your house, so we got to expect better. We got to expect more. So as we look at the presidential race, as we break that down in terms of what the candidates did this week, the president spoke today at the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court decision Brown versus Board of Education, which, of course, ended school segregation in American schools. Here's what he had to say about the link between education and freedom.
Education is linked to freedom. Because to be free means to have something that no one can ever take away from you. That's why the Brown decision to commemorate today is so important. The work of building democracy is a possibility, of a democracy worthy of our dreams, starts with opening the doors of opportunity for everyone without exception.
And that is the role of government. You've heard me quote Lincoln on this many times, that the purpose of government is to clear the path of laudable pursuits for all, to lift artificial weights from all shoulders, to give everyone an unfettered start and a fair chance in the race of life. Education is all about that. I thought the president was on point there today. And there's still a lot of debate in terms of how education does play out. And I think a lot of the connections now are not necessarily based on race, but based on economics. And those that are in poor communities and in poorer schools are the ones that are struggling to have the education that President Biden rightly described as the key to freedom. And so I thought that was an important thing. I think it was a good speech by the president this morning commemorating the Brown versus Board of Education ruling there at the African American History and Culture Museum there in Washington, D.C. Now, the big hoopla as it relates to the presidential race this week, of course, was about the announcement earlier this week, which can only be described as a throwdown from a World Wrestling Federation match with the president going on social media saying, "Make my day, pal. I'll debate you twice, anywhere." Of course, the former president responding in kind, and both of them choosing to circumvent the Commission on Presidential Debates. to do their own thing. And why do they do their own thing? Because it's in their favor and because they can. And so they did, which doesn't mean they should, but they did. And within an hour of that announcement, of course, CNN announced that they had agreed and had everybody all set up to do a debate in June. ABC quickly followed that they'll do one in September. And, of course, the key thing that it allows them to do is to box out one Robert Kennedy Jr. He has, of course, cried foul and collusion in all of that. And while I disagree with him on a lot of politics, he may be right on this one. I do think it was in both President Biden and in former President Trump's favor to not have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the stage with them because he could call both sides out in a very unique way that even a moderator couldn't. So Robert Kennedy Jr. announced to a crowd in Austin, Texas last weekend that his campaign had actually collected enough signatures in the state of Texas to qualify for the ballot, an important part of marching forward to get access in all 50 states.
We had an historic day today in Texas. We handed in almost just under 250,000 signatures. The pundits, you heard them from the beginning of this campaign, were saying it would be impossible for us to get on the ballot. And we got on the ballot in Texas. And if you can get on in Texas, we can get on everywhere.
His vice presidential running mate made an additional $8 million contribution to the campaign that will help them in their effort to get on the ballot in all 50 states. Now, if they're able to do that quickly enough, then it might change the dynamic in terms of being on a debate stage, which, of course, Kennedy needs to have if he's going to have any path to get more momentum and to really play a role in what happens on the first Tuesday of November. Former President Trump has done a few big rally events outside of the time he is spending in the courtroom in New York. Of course, that's been where a lot of the national news has been in relationship to what is happening inside the courtroom. Wednesdays, he's not in court, and on the weekend, so we'll continue to watch where he goes with that part of the messaging. In terms of the race itself, of course, the race will really be decided by a few swing states. And we often look at those as Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Those are the states that tend to be the most competitive and where it will be close. Now, the New York Times came out with some new polling early this week showing that the former president had the lead in 5 key states and was winning in some pretty crucial demographics in each of those states. And so that is definitely a wake-up call to some of those inside of the Biden campaign. And my guess is we don't need to hyperventilate about anything just yet because this is going to go back and forth over the course of the summer and into the fall. And my guess is that in all of these states, with maybe the exception of Arizona and Nevada, where the former president has built up some fairly significant leads. And again, it will also be determined on whether or not Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is on the ballot in those states that could swing the race one way or the other. And so we'll continue to keep our eyes on all of that. And to me, the interesting thing moving into the summer months, as people pay a little less attention to what's happening politically, how will they get their messages out? What will President Biden do? My sense is he'll continue to try to do what we call the Rose Garden on the road, where he'll do some things formally within his office and capacity as Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States. And then he'll weave in his political events around that. So he'll try to do things that look like accomplishments or celebrate accomplishments in his view. He's got a messaging challenge. He's got to get to the economy. The economy is going to be the big one. The former president has 2 things that are against him, time and resources, and he's spending both of those on legal issues. A lot of his time and a lot of his resources are going to legal fees. And so that's going to be his challenge over the course of the summer. All right, that wraps up our Inside Sources Inside Look at presidential politics. We'll step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news, an important, crucial conversation when it comes to mental health coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour, an armed man who was shot by Taylorsville police last year is doing well now and receiving mental health treatment. Salt Lake District Attorney Sim Gill announced at a news conference earlier today that Alex Boren pleaded to the offense of destruction of property, but they won't pursue any other charges.
This is not where we should end up with those veterans, and we can do better in getting treatment and support to those veterans who are in just incredible, dire need.
Gill says Boren's perception was that he believed he was fighting someone off with a gun and believed his self-inflicted knife wounds came from an attacker. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A man police believe is connected to the disappearances of 5 women in Portland has now been charged with 3 counts of second-degree murder. Jesse Calhoun was already in jail on an unrelated charge. 2 more cases still being investigated. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average ending trading today up 134 points, while the NASDAQ was down 12. And our KSL weather looks like things will cool off and cloud up over the weekend. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
It's time to go for the gold. Gold tier checking from Hercules Credit Union. It is the place for you. You get free credit monitoring, no monthly fees, and there's a new promotional rate. Get this, 4.25% on your balance in your checking account. So not in your savings account, in your checking account, earning 4.25% is an amazing thing. You also earn points every time you use your debit card. You can redeem that for cash back, travel, gift cards, and much, much more, all with our friends at Hercules Credit Union. They are about community, about educating you so that you can make better financial decisions and have more confidence in your financial future. They've been doing this since 1946. Nobody does it better. It's not about transactions. It's about relationships at Hercules Credit Union. You can find their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, or Salt Lake City. And as always, you can find them online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
Are you really that different than the rest of us?
We are. As a fiduciary, we always focus on what's best for our clients.
What services do you offer besides investing?
We have a team of specialists in financial planning, estate planning, and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, we ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Okay, but you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, because we believe that's a conflict of interest. We prioritize service over sales goals.
So, then how do your fees work?
We have a simple and transparent fee that's a percentage of our clients' portfolios. So we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
You know, Deb, you and I have had this conversation so many times. We think, oh, I wish I had a little more light here or maybe a ceiling fan there.
That's why we love Master Electrical. So anytime we have an electrical problem, we know we can call them and they will give us their upfront pricing guarantee.
Because we're not going to do it yourself. We're going to leave it to the professionals. And this upfront pricing guarantee is fantastic. I'm sure you've been bitten by bids in the past where they say, oh, that's going to take half a day. And then 2 weeks later, the bid and the invoice have nothing to do with each other.
Not only will you get their upfront pricing guarantee, but you will never see an upcharge. Their pricing system simply won't allow it.
Master Electrical proudly serves from Logan to Santaquin.
They do everything that has to do with electrical, and they're always open, including for emergency services. The phone number to call is 801-543-2222.
801-543-2222, or check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
Emergency traffic now brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. Here's Ricky Meese.
Northbound I-15, the crash at 114th South has been moved to the right. We have one right lane blocked, and we still have slow and go and stop and go delays almost back to the point of the mountain. Now we have a crash on the southbound side of I-15 approaching 106 South. They've worked to get it moved to the left up against the barrier, but it's backing traffic into Murray. S&S Roofing is your trusted source for quality and affordability. They've been the top roofing company in Utah for over 40 years. Schedule an estimate now. Get a free quote at snsroofinginc.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Look for breezy winds, slight chance of rain today, and then over the weekend things will cloud up and cool off just a bit. Highs drop into the 60s by Monday. Right now, 81 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Utah continues to lead national discussions and on a wide range of issues and showing how you can get comfortable with the uncomfortable and have a different kind of conversation. Yesterday, Utah's business community at Silicon Slopes held a mental health town hall. I love that. Trying to collaborate and come up with better solutions to help in our nation's crisis of mental health. There were all kinds of great speakers and leaders attended the event, really crucial conversations. And one of those was our good friend of the show, Gaynalyn Condi. Gaynalyn, of course, is an extraordinary speaker, best-selling author, and someone who understands mental health in a personal way and a powerful way, helping people navigate those sometimes choppy waters. And Gaynalyn, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back.
So tell us about this event yesterday at Silicon Slopes, this mental health town hall. I love that they convened this. Tell us how it played out.
So I love it too. I think for those in your audience that are familiar with me and my story, 10 years ago when we lost my sister Meg to suicide, I don't think these were happening. I mean, I don't want to go on the record and have someone like message and say, actually, we did one in Nebraska, but I just don't think they were happening, and especially within business settings. And so it was a wide variety of business leaders, mental health. They had some mental health professionals on hand, and I was one of the presenters. And really, this theme was to share those real personal stories. So I was able to talk, as I have done thousands of other opportunities to do so across the world, about Meg specifically and what I've learned in the wake of her passing and what we can talk about in a way that moves the needle in all of our mental health. And I was really, as somber of a subject as it was so great to realize that 10 years later, we were having a gathering like this.
Yeah, I think having those kind of gatherings, and so often in the past, there's either been that shame associated with it or guilt associated with it, or I can't show weakness. I can't let on that I'm struggling with my mental health or I'm having suicidal thoughts. And the fact that you could have that at Silicon Slopes in a business environment where people could say, yeah, let's have a real, honest, authentic conversation, to me is the beginning of change.
Right. And I think especially when there's a personal connection, there is some generational shame that can carry on. And so I loved that some of the other stories that were shared talked about destigmatizing what survivors and the grief looks like in the wake of suicide. And really, I invited the audience to do what I think is a little bit more of a helpful question to ask. And you're so good at asking questions. And instead of asking someone that has lost someone to suicide, why? That's the door that leads to 20,000 other doors. And so the why question isn't as helpful in my mind for our mental health and for moving forward from the loss of suicide. Instead, asking about what risk factors we all navigate. So we all steward a list of risk factors. And I knew there were people yesterday in the audience that had the same risk factor list as my sister did, and they were still there. And so sometimes we think we want to know that one signal that will tell us when a loved one is in trouble, and that helps us as humans control the vulnerability. But the reality is, can we just assume we all walk around at any given moment of the day with a list of risk factors that we are called upon in mental health awareness to steward?
Yeah, and May is Mental Health Month, and it's a great time to be thinking this through. And I do think it's important that we all recognize, as you point out so well, Gaynalyn, that we're all broken. We're all broken a little different, but we're all broken in some different ways. And just having that awareness, one, of what's going on inside of me, and then being aware enough to see that in others, I think, again, can help us foster those better conversations, not at the bottom of the cliff, but up at the top.
Yeah, we want to have these conversations when there's a headline or we lose someone in a community. But I like to say there's a unique bit of crazy in me, and I usually really love and connect with the bit of crazy in somebody else. And so when we just realize that we're all a work of art, which means we have flaws, and have conversations in normal everyday settings instead of waiting until there's a headline, I think that's the biggest step we can take, whether it's May and Mental Health Awareness Month specifically, but every single day.
Yeah, and one of your gifts, Gainalyn, is being able to take us from that big space of, okay, now there's an awareness of this. Oh, okay, I can see that, I can feel that, and then leading us down into the practical, tactical. What can I do today? What should I be thinking about? What should I be talking about today as it relates to mental health?
So I just did a post on social media that I feel like is an actionable step that I feel like it's an obvious permission we all have. But when I posted about it and got feedback, I realized sometimes we just need someone to state the obvious. And maybe many of your audience are cleaning out closets, cleaning out the yard for spring, trying to make a step towards like decluttering, whatever that is, reorganizing in our lives and in our spaces. My invitation on social media was to do a spring cleaning of your social media, specifically under the umbrella of mental health awareness. Are you following accounts, which means you're consuming content that inspires you and teaches you? Are you following accounts that help you connect with someone you love and support your goals? Are you instead, following accounts that lead you into comparisons and make you feel less empowered and don't strengthen the relationships you're working on? If you can answer yes to any of those, I give permission to mute an account or unfollow an account. And that's not an act of hate or violence. It's just being conscious about how what we consume really does matter, especially when it comes to scrolling and liking on social media.
Yeah, and we have to remember that every time we do that, we're just reinforcing all of those algorithms, and we're going to get more of it. And so
yes.
If you are following an account that isn't inspiring you, that isn't connecting you to the people that you care about, if it isn't leading you to feel more confident about who you are or where you are, those are all things that we can say, you know what? Enough. Enough is the word of the day today, by the way. I'm calling out on Congress to just enough of all the nonsense. And I think it is a day to say enough. I don't need to follow this account because I don't feel better after. I feel shame, or I feel less than, I feel weak, or I tend to isolate myself after because I have negative emotion. We got to get to that space and be able to say enough.
The greatest compliment I feel like I receive as a content creator, whatever label you want to make that, is when someone says, I can trust if I go to your account, I'm going to feel inspired. And I try to show a wide variety of different stewardships I'm navigating, which means some days it's not great. I've also done a post this week of feeling really betrayed and hurt by a situation. And so I think to realize that social media gives us one layer, and sometimes that layer is not helpful. We have permission to not consume food we don't like. We have permission to leave a space that doesn't feel comfortable. And yet we sometimes act as if we are like tied to our chair, forced to scroll and consume content that really doesn't elevate our mental health. It doesn't strengthen our goals and doesn't make us feel empowered. And instead, it leads us down comparison lands that are filled with minds that are going off all the time. And so I think it's so important, especially as you see the headlines every day. Maybe it's just that you're following too many news outlets, right? Like the news of today was too heavy for me. I saw some of the conversations happening in Washington, and it made me so sad. And I just thought, okay, today's the day I'm going to be really intentional about the conversations I have and the media I consume.
Being intentional, I think, is the big thing. And I love the analogy, Gainalyn, of we're not strapped to the chair. Our finger is not, embedded into the phone yet. And we have to be able to say that. I mean, if you don't like a movie, you walk out. If you're in if you're in a neighborhood or an environment you don't feel safe, you go somewhere else.
Yeah, really. Like if you came into my home and started punching holes in my wall, I wrote about this in one of my books when people talk about their bodies in a negative way. I wouldn't just sit there and think, oh, I don't want to make you uncomfortable. You're punching holes in my wall. You can be invited out. And yet we literally allow content creators to punch holes in our spirit and in our soul and in our brain when we continually show up. And like you said, the algorithms will reward that. Then all those social platforms think you are really into shouting matches or cat videos or whatever it is. And so I think to be intentional and give ourselves permission, I feel like it was really healthy for me this week to kind of go through and go, okay, that person, they're saying and posting things that help me just know how they're doing. And then this other account is actually turning up the light in my life. Everyone's mental health is on a continuum and on a daily basis. And I would say instead of chasing away all the dark, just be intentional about turning up the light.
Yeah, fantastic. Great stuff, as always. Our trusted source, Gaynalyn Condi, when it comes to mental health. May is Mental Health Month. It's time for those conversations. And as Gaynalyn pointed out, just walk away. Just say enough. Enough is the word today. If you're scrolling through things and it's not taking you where you want to go, just say enough, unfollow, mute, move on, go somewhere that is going to get you connected, help you feel empowered and positive so that you can move forward in those conversations. Gaynalyn Condi, as always, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, friend.
All right, we'll step aside for one last break. Come back with some final thoughts. Interesting. We're going to go back to 1979 for something that could have been and maybe should have been said today. We'll be right back. Stick around.
Achieving the extraordinary, getting things done. That's the Utah way. And that's Brad Wilson. He delivered the biggest tax cut Utah's ever seen, keeping more money in your pocket. And on the Second Amendment, when others caved, Brad Wilson stood tall, enacted constitutional carry. Wilson stood up to the EPA, sued Joe Biden to protect Utah's energy industry, and won. And when others backed down on illegal immigration, Wilson didn't buckle. He banned sanctuary cities. In the U.S. Senate, he'd bring the Utah way to Washington, taking Joe Biden's agenda head on. That's why over 60 mayors, 22 sheriffs, and leading conservatives across Utah are supporting Brad Wilson for U.S. Senate, because Brad Wilson's the tested, trusted Utah conservative for U.S. Senate. Join them and thousands more supporting Brad Wilson at electbradwilson.com.
I'm Brad Wilson, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Wilson for Senate.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Dino Day. Celebrate on June 1st at all Sinclair locations. We had an accident northbound I-15 in Draper, about 114 south. What's left of that is over to the right shoulder, but emergency crews are blocking a right lane of traffic. Now we have a stalled vehicle in the backup northbound I-15 near Bangerter Highway. They're trying to get it moved out of traffic to the shoulder, but from the point of the mountain up to 114 south, you're going to see delays with speeds ranging from slow and go and stop and go speeds. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Good morning. I'm the 40% off window company.
40% off? Of what?
Hey, 40% off!
Yeah, I'll bet it's your biggest sale of the year. This week only, because you need a model home in our neighborhood. Well, nothing. It's baloney. Hi, this is Kathy.
And Doug of Window World. When you hear those things, you know you've entered the baloney zone.
Resist the force of the baloney zone.
Find Window World online at windowworldutah.com.
Or call Window World at 281-8111. That's 281-8111.
And that's no baloney.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best, just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment and product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Your neighbor Greg loves the springtime here in Utah, but he hates to paint, so he called Rhino Shield.
We live in a beautiful two-story home that was built in 1916. Really been prepped and painted very, very poorly.
Rhino Shield ceramic technology is formulated for our unique climate here in Utah and is Class 1 fire rated.
We really had a lot of detail work, and the team at Rhino Shield spent really 4 days just on the prep work, and we were so excited to see that. And the cleanup was just impeccable.
Utah, get the 25-year guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield right now for 15% off the regular price.
We've gotten numerous compliments, and we've actually even had some of the longer-term residents of our community thank us for protecting the integrity of our home.
This offer is limited, so call now 435-246-4466, 435-246-4466, or rhinoshieldwest.com.
Go Rhino Shield.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, the Salt Lake DA has cleared the officers who shot and wounded an armed veteran during a mental health crisis last year. Second, the man accused of killing a well-known local toy maker in a drunk driving crash in West Jordan has been convicted on all counts. And third, the Brown versus Board of Education decision that ended school segregation turns 70 years old today. Activists, though, say we still have a long way to go. 81 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we round out the program today, we often say that history doesn't always repeat itself, but it definitely rhymes. And right now, we seem to be in this space here in 2024 that is rhyming in a pretty significant way with 1979. So many parallels in terms of the economy and fuel prices and bitterness in our politics and division in the country and across the world, challenges in the Middle East. It's definitely rhyming us in a significant way if it's not repeating itself directly. And so often we fail to learn those lessons, and so we tend to repeat them. And so we don't want to do that, so we're going to go back in history to just get some interesting perspective in terms of where I think we are as a nation, and more importantly, where we need to go. So we're actually going to go across the pond, and we're going to go to a speech delivered by British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in 1979. It's often referred to as the Winter of Our Discontent speech. And it was really interesting. In this particular speech, each of the major political factions there in the UK were regularly given time to address the nation. So, of course, this was long before cable news networks and 24/7 news cycles. So just on their standard BBC over there in Great Britain, the leaders of the respective political parties would regularly be given time to address the nation. And often those addresses were very divisive and very political. Sound familiar, I'm sure. So I want to start with the beginning of this speech from British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Again, this is early in the year in 1979, one of the biggest economic crises that had hit the country since World War II. And here she is in a time that was going to be a very heated political season in the UK. I want you to listen to how she chose to begin her address to the nation. Again, this was political time she had been given by the network. Listen to how she framed it, and then listen to what she said.
Yes, technically this is a party political broadcast on behalf of the Conservative Party. But tonight I don't propose to use the time to make party political points. I don't think you'd want me to do so. The crisis that our country faces is too serious for that. And it is our country, the whole nation, that faces this crisis, not just one party or even one government. This is no time to put party before country. I start from there. Of course there are major political differences between the parties, just as there are between many of you sitting at home. But I
I believe there are some things which should not divide us. None of us wants to see our country torn apart. Some of the things I've seen on television and read in the newspapers and heard directly from you in factories and shopping centres make me wonder what has happened to our sense of common nationhood and even of common humanity.
Margaret Thatcher, 1979. Amazing. Some of the things that she watched on television, read in the papers, heard from people around the country, had her questioning that sense of common nationhood, even common humanity, which is often indicative of the kinds of conversations we're enduring today. I love that she said, hey, this is supposed to be a political party broadcast. I'm not here to make political points. The time is too serious. And we are one nation. It's not a party. It's not a government. We have to put the country first and have a different kind of conversation. She went on to talk about a lot of the issues of the day that they were dealing with there in the UK. But I want to jump now to the close of this address. Again, it was political time allotted by the news networks there in the UK. But listen to how she closed out this speech with a question all democracies, including ours in 2024, should be reflecting on and thinking about.
In a democracy, we choose, each one of us, what sort of society we want to live in. What sort of country do you want? Despite our problems and our failures, this is still a good land to live in and bring up a family. It's a land of great natural riches, the coal beneath our feet, the oil and gas in the sea around our shores, the fertile acres of our farms. But it's also a land of great human resources. We still have, and we've always had, enterprise and skills, firms and industries whose workers can perform as well as any in the world. What we don't have are the right conditions, the incentive for success. And it's this incentive we must and can create. But to do so, we must first stop tearing ourselves apart. If the present crisis has taught us anything, it surely taught us that we have to think of others as well as ourselves. That no one, however strong his case, is entitled to pursue it by hurting others. There are wreckers among us who don't believe this. But the vast majority of us do believe it, whether we call ourselves Labour, Conservative, Liberal, or simply British. It's to that majority that I'm talking this evening. We have to learn again to be one nation, or one day we shall be no nation. If we've learned that lesson from these first dark days of 1979, then we've learned something of value.
That's Margaret Thatcher. I think that speech should be delivered on the floor of the House of Representatives today. And in the well of the United States Senate, I think it should be the beginning of every